Hey guys, welcome back to the Music Hole. My name is Cole. Now today we're going to go back to 2007 to talk about a very famous release, which is of course In Rainbows by Radiohead. And it's famous because when the band released the album, they put it up on their website and said, pay us whatever you think it's worth, whether that's $1 or $50, whatever you want. So it's a really cool marketing gimmick, the first of its kind. I don't think it's been repeated since, but it was an interesting idea. Thankfully, the album, though, is really, really good. So clearly I spent more than $1. But anyway, I'm very excited to talk about it. It's one of my favorite Radiohead albums. So let's dive in with track 1, which is called 15 Step. Yeah, I just love this song. I think it's very, very human. And what I mean by that is you've got this poor guy who keeps going in and out of relationships. And at the end of all these relationships, when the girl dumps him, he keeps asking himself, what the heck did I do wrong exactly? You know? He keeps thinking that he's learning from his experiences, but he's not. You know, he enters these relationships, they last for a while, and then the girl leaves him for one reason or another. And he keeps asking himself, you know, how come I end up where I started? How come I end up where I went wrong? You know, he's trying to keep his eye on the ball, but like most people, it's a lot easier said than done, right? You can look at somebody's mistakes and tell them what they did wrong or tell them what they did right. And that's one thing, but to actually like put them into place and to actually like learn from your mistakes and act on them in real life is a totally different thing. And I'm definitely guilty of this, where I even know what some of my issues are in my life. You know, I can point them out very easily. But to actually like change my behavior is a whole nother thing. I mean, think about it like you were addicted to drugs or something. You know that you're not supposed to take heroin. You know that you're not supposed to do crack and cocaine. Addicts are very, very aware of this fact. Right? So why don't they stop? You know, just stop doing it. Like they know that they're on a collision course to disaster. They know what's going on, and yet they don't stop. Why? Because it's easier said than done. So anyway, that's why I like this song. It's very human. This poor guy, he's not learning from his mistakes, or if he is, he's not acting on his newfound knowledge. But anyway, so let's move on to track 2, which is called Bodysnatchers.
I do not understand what it is. I don't know for the holes. Check for holes. Blink your eyes.
Yeah, so this song to me is about a guy who's not comfortable in his own skin, right? He's acting a certain way because he feels like he has to. He feels like he can't act like himself because if he does, then he's going to drive people away. He's not going to fit in. People won't like him. People will think he's not smart or he's kind of weird or whatever negative thought you might think of. So this poor guy is trapped in this cycle where, like, maybe on some level he knows that he needs to just stop pretending. He needs to stop putting on this mask that we all put on, more or less, when we go out and interact with people. He feels trapped in his body because his body is not allowing him to be himself. It's a very weird thing, but it's a very common thing. I talk about this a lot on my channel. A lot of singer-songwriters talk about this very problem, right, of the issue of, well, if I act like myself, I might drive people away because I'm too unique, quote unquote. But if I try to act like everybody else so that I can fit in, so that I can be tribalized, so that I can belong to a group, you give up a part of yourself. And are you okay with that? And on top of that, people might notice that you're kind of full of it, right? That you're kind of full of BS. So there's like this weird act that people, this dancing act that people go through where, like, they're trying to figure out the perfect combination of being who they are mixed with being with who they think they should be in order to appeal to the most people. Like, life is so bizarre if you think about it like that. Like, why can't we just be ourselves? But unfortunately, that's not how life works. That's why we have nations and cultures and religions and things like that. People like to be part of a group. That's just how it is. So I identify with this guy. I want to be myself and also be liked. But anyways, let's move on to track 3, which is called Nude.
Don't get any big ideas. They're not gonna happen. You paint yourself white and feel noise. There'll be something missing. Now that you found it's gone. Now that you feel it, you don't. You got off the
Man, our poor hero, I'm assuming it's the same guy. I mean, maybe it's not, but let's say it is. This poor guy, not only can he not be himself, but he's doubting himself constantly. He's like, oh, maybe I'll be a famous rock star if I just work at it and write songs and, practice with my bandmates. No, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Why even bother? Why even try in the first place? Which, of course, is a lot of lazy people's problem, myself included, where you just assume it's way too hard, or you just assume that your shot at being successful is just very, very low. So why even bother? Why be that poor soul who decided to be an artist and spends, his 20s trying to be an artist and ends up being completely unsuccessful, making no money at it, waking up at 30, realizing he's got no career. He's basically wasted his entire 20s, his young life, pursuing something that didn't work out. We don't want to be that guy, right? I mean, it's one of those weird situations where like pursuing it is a noble endeavor because you got to have people trying in order to get the Who's and the Beatles and the Stones and all the great bands. You got to have people who try in order to have people who are successful. But since most people are not successful, most people end up being that guy at 30 who realizes he kind of screwed up his life, so to speak, and now has no idea what to do with himself. So that's kind of what this song means to me. But anyway, so let's move along to track 4, which is called Weird Fishes Arpeggi.
I'd be crazy not to fall. Follow where you lead. Your eyes, they tell me you're the phantom. I follow to the end of the earth. Fall. Yeah, everybody leave. If they get the chance of me, it's my chance. I get eaten by the worms.
So I've always thought of this song as being about a woman who's just so charismatic and beautiful that you just can't help but follow them wherever they take you. You know, because there are people who are kind of just out of your league. We all know that, right? There's your league and then there's their league. So you might be like a 6 out of 10, but she's a 10 out of 10. So if somebody like that falls in love with you or appears to fall in love with you, you know, obviously you could have like a great job or something and that's what they're in love with, whatever it is. So they're in love with you apparently. And that means that because of that dynamic going on, you're pretty much going to follow wherever they lead you, so to speak, which is kind of what he's talking about. So the unfortunate outcome of this could possibly be that this person's a horrible person, right? Maybe they're kind of abusive emotionally, psychologically, whatever it is, physically. But because they're just so out of your league, you kind of delude yourself and you make yourself think like, well, I don't want to lose this person because there's no way in you know, there's no chance in hell that I'm ever going to find somebody else just like her who's on that level. You know, and maybe it's not even a beauty thing. Maybe they have like a lot of money or something. You know, it's not necessarily that they're just like a 10 out of 10 beauty. Maybe they're like a multi-millionaire and you're asking yourself, you know, like, why the heck is she even with me, right? I'm a teacher, let's say. Like, why the heck is this doctor with millions of dollars into me? It doesn't make any sense. So whenever you're in a situation, relationship-wise, where the dynamic is really, really skewed, I would argue that it makes things really, really weird because on one hand, let's say you're the woman. You might think to yourself, well, maybe this guy is only with me because I have a lot of money. They want to stick around to get some of it, to live that high life. You know, maybe if from a woman's perspective, it could be skewed that way, where maybe she's not that beautiful, but the guy is a little out of her league, but she has a lot of money, so she's wondering, like, why is this guy really with me, right? So that's kind of how I interpret the song, is it's about kind of unfair dynamics in relationships where it creates this really awkward situation where you might end up being in a really negative situation just because you don't want to lose this person who you perceive is out of your league. So that's how I interpret this song. But anyway, let's move along. Let's talk about track number 5, which is called All I Need.
I'm the next step, waiting in the wings. I'm an animal trapped in your hot car. I am all the days that you choose to ignore. You are all I need. You're all I need. I'm in the middle of your picture, lying in the reeds. I am a moth that just wants to share your.
Wow, oh my goodness. So this guy is deluding himself. He's in love with this woman who is clearly in a relationship, it sounds like. But he's convinced himself that he's so in love with her, and he knows that this relationship she's in is not going to last because probably the guy's a jerk, right? It's probably pretty clear that the guy in her relationship is abusive. And so he's just staring at the situation, thinking to himself, it's 100% gonna happen that she's gonna wake up one day and realize this guy is completely a terrible situation. He's awful, he's abusive, blah, 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 blah. And he's gonna finally leave him and be with the main character, our hero, who is probably not much of a catch, is what it sounds like. He's probably a little bit creepy, I would imagine. He's just somebody who, you know, instead of like finding someone else, he's infatuated with this one person. And whenever you put somebody up on a pedestal like that, you know, it just creates a really weird dynamic in the relationship that's really unfair. You know, I mean, I would argue personally that when you're in a relationship, you know, it should be about even in almost all aspects of the relationship, like beauty-wise, career-wise, money-wise, things like that, even interest-wise. So this hero of ours, he's deluding himself not only into thinking that she's going to leave this guy who's clearly abusive, but also that she's even interested in this guy at all. Because I would imagine she's, you know, like this in terms of being out of his league, like in the last song. But anyway, so that's what this song makes me think of, is people who you know, they're those people that assume that there's just one soulmate out there for you, and when you find them, you just ignore everybody else. When what you should be doing is you should always be on the lookout. Never assume there's one soulmate for you. So anyways, let's move along to track number 7, which is called Reckoner.
This
Yeah, so Reckoner is clearly death, right? I mean, basically, Tom York is trying to remind everybody that you've got to spend your time wisely. We only have a finite amount of time on this earth. So don't do things recklessly, like, spend your entire life working a job that you hate just because you're making a bunch of money. It might be a better situation for you if you work a job making not as much money, but you have a lot more free time, or maybe you're doing something that you enjoy a lot more. Like for example, let's say you're a lawyer and you're making a lot of money being a lawyer, but you hate the fact that A, you're busy all the time, and B, maybe you're like defending criminals and morally and ethically you feel kind of weird about it, right? But you convince yourself, well, I have a respectable job, I make a lot of money, people are probably envious of me, but in reality, I don't have a lot of free time. I don't get a lot of time to do what I really want to do. And also maybe what you really want to do is be like an artist or something. The choices that you make matter. And maybe for you, even being something like a teacher, which is not a high-paying job, as we all know, but maybe you like teaching people. It might not be the same as being like a doctor or owning your own company or something like that, but at least you're doing what you love to do, and then maybe it gives you a lot of free time because you've got the summers off, so you get to go on vacation and stuff. So that's all he's trying to say. He's just trying to remind you guys, just remember, right? Even though it seems like we have infinite time on this earth because 80, 90, 100 years passes by really slowly, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be 85 years old and you're going to regret all of the things you wish you did, but you weren't able to do because you were working at a job you hate. So basically, just keep that in mind. But anyways, let's move along to track number 8, which is called House of Cards.
I don't wanna be your friend, I just wanna be your lover. No matter how it ends, no matter how it starts, forget about your house of cards, and now they're mine. Forget about your house of cards, and now they're mine. And fall off the table, get swept under.
Yeah, my. Our poor hero on this song, he wants to be your lover, not your friend. And it sounds like this woman is in a really bad relationship, a really bad marriage. The House of Cards implies that the marriage, or at least the relationship she's in, is just totally going to fall apart, at any moment's notice. So basically, this guy is in love with a woman who's out of his reach. And it kind of reminds me of the guy from that earlier song. I forget which track it was, but we talked about a guy who convinced himself that if he just waited around long enough, this woman would like wake up and realize, oh my gosh, there's this guy and he's totally in love with me and he'll do whatever he needs to do to be with me. And oh my gosh, I want to be with this guy. Like, this sounds amazing, which of course is total, that's a total fantasy. But you know what? I admire that this guy knows exactly what he wants. He's not going to pussyfoot around it and try to be this girl's friend while she's in a relationship, right? He's being upfront. He's like, I'm in love with you. I don't think your relationship's going to last. So when you realize that it isn't going to last and you wake up one day, I'm going to be here for you as like your backup plan. But I admire the fact that this guy is not one of those men who develops a fake friendship with a woman when in reality what he's doing is waiting around for her to finally be available, right? There's definitely men who do that, and they're kind of creepy, and I feel bad for them. So at least he's not one of these people. But anyways, let's move along to the last track that I want to talk about, which I have to remind myself. Oh, sorry, not the last track. No, yeah, it is. Sorry. Jigsaw, Falling into Place. Let's check it out.
Just as you take my hand, just as you write my number down, just as the drinks arrive, just as they play your favorite song, as your body disappears. No one to wind up like a spring before you had too much. Come back and focus again. The walls have been in shape. They got a Cheshire cat grin, all blurring into one. This place is on a mission before the night out. Before the animal noises closer get cameras. Before you come
So this song is basically about the time in college when Tom York and friends got drunk all the time while they're in their band. And Jigsaw Falling into Place is another way of saying that he's got all of these kind of disconnected memories of going out to bars and clubs and getting wasted and meeting girls and, you know, doing all of these fun things. But to him, it's like one big puzzle, and he's trying to figure out like the chronology of events and what exactly happened when. And on one hand, you could argue the song is about regret to a degree. Does he regret spending a lot of time getting drunk and having these and having these experiences that he can't really remember correctly, right? Because he's trying to remember them, but it's a little fuzzy, it's a little foggy. You know, he's forgetting details. He's trying to put the jigsaw puzzle together, so to speak. And so that's kind of what it makes me think about is he regretting to some degree getting drunk so much that he doesn't have the memories anymore, or at least the memories that he has are just so disconnected that he can't remember what exactly happened and when, you know. So you could argue that getting drunk and having a good time is like a very now and temporary type of thing. It's a very now kind of experience. Whereas if you weren't getting drunk and you could remember all these things, then you might cherish that more. I mean, it's debatable. I think it's very debatable. I think that he actually is not really feeling badly about doing this, about getting drunk a lot. I think he had a great time. I don't think he has any regrets, but he is thinking about it. He's like, I wish I could remember things a little bit more clearly because they were a lot of fun. Those are some good times. So, you know, in my own life, let's relate it to myself. So in my own life, I don't really get drunk ever. So I remember a lot. And, you know, you could argue, like Tom York might, that, well, if you don't loosen up, then maybe you wouldn't do as many things as you might if you were a little intoxicated. Because when you're drunk, you tend to hit on that girl. You tend to experiment and try things. Because you're kind of loosey-goosey, right? You're feeling good, you're feeling confident, you're feeling courageous by that liquid courage. So maybe it's worth the trade-off. So it's just something to think about. That's what the song makes me think of is, you know, weighing the pros and cons of the party life versus being kind of straight edge. But anyway, that's the last track I want to talk about from In Rainbows. I hope you guys like the album. I think it's really, really good. I think it's a great album. It's not as intense as like The Bends or OK Computer. I think you can say that, but it is really cool. The instrumentation on it especially is really different. I really like it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you find it interesting. But let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. I'll check it out. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It would really help my channel out. I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, that's Radiohead. Check them out and have a good one.